Hello. Um, I'm going to be moving on with trying to create a example problem 17 test drive page based on the test drive we created. Going to get in and start looking at some code, changing some codes up. It's basically the basic codes that gets our feet wet and for the most part our industry uses. So as I just scroll down, I'm starting in Canvas. I'm showing you in Canvas where by this point what you should been able to work through and get through, and that's the three notes of the basic internet introduction to the web page and the basic HTML tag. And you need to have the web development folder established and follow the video on the prior notes dealing with programming module 7 notes, which talks about creating a test drive HTML page. Okay, so if you haven't done that, you can't move on with this video. It's very important that you review the first 3 notes and create the test drive page before moving on. We will be creating a file that's called example 17, building on that, and then on the conclusion, you'll be coming back here once you're done with that example problem 17 to upload that file here within the Canvas. So I'm going to springboard us right into module 7 at this particular time. Again, this is the video that I'm asking you to quickly watch before and complete before moving on with the notes here. That's on the notes on the HTML organization techniques example problem 17. You're not going to be able to do this assignment until you have successfully gone through this video and reviewed the basic HTML tags. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the HTML organization technique. And I think I have this page already opened up right here. So the first half of these notes are getting into simply doing a copying and paste and renaming. Copying and paste renaming. So just in general, in the earlier years of web development, you know, it was not as fancy and in the bells and whistles that we see today on the internet web pages. But this is where we're going to be starting. We got to start somewhere, and we're going to be looking at some generic code. So I'm going to be working to create a test drive with you, which we did already. And then I'm going to be going there and copying and pasting and renaming it to test drive example 17. And that's what we're going to be building on. So we're taking a file that we have already created, copying and pasting it, and then renaming it. So if I'm going to go to my program file inside my documents programming file, and inside that you'll see the web development. Inside the web development, this is where we created in the last video the test drive page. So what I'm going to be doing is doing a copy of this, and then I'm going to be doing a paste of this. So what you see here now is a test drive hyphen copy. Okay, so if I go back to the notes real quick, ladies and gentlemen, I'm wanting to rename that to test drive example 17, and it's important that you leave the extension .html on it. Okay, so if I go back there and I right click and I say rename, I now have that capability of renaming that. So I'm just going to make a settle change, go on the right side of the Y, and then type in example 17. So I now have a new file, the same file as test drive, but I just renamed it and I click away. I now have 2 files, but I'm going to be working on the example problem 17. So I'm going to go ahead and launch by double clicking that, and you can see how I'm using Chrome. That's my browser, and it loads up. I'm going to go back there, but quickly let me go back to my notes and address the steps I'm going to be doing next. And I talk about loading up the example problem 17, which I just did. I just double click, but at this time I want to load up and open with this file with Notepad. Okay, so I now have the code side of this. So if I go back to this, my web developing page, right click on the area that says test drive, come down here and say open with. You should be able to see Notepad resting right in this area. If you don't see Notepad in this area, you may have to come down here and choose a program, and then you should be able to seek out and find Notepad, which is right there. So I'm just going to click that and go okay. So I now have that code opened up. So I'm going to see if I can't do a little bit, make it a little bit easier for me. And I'm going to get this browser and the test drive in a split screen. I'm going to be coding on one side of my screen and doing a save and refresh on the other side of the screen. So I'm going to move this text box down here a little bit so it's out of the way. This is my browser and this is the coding. So this is a split screen that I'm going to be working with. And you can also see, again, I have the Notepad down here to the left and the browser to the right. So simply enough, I can easily have accessibility back to the notes. If I scroll down, and again, my notes may be a little bit smaller to read in this aspects of it. But now I'm ready to proceed on. Okay, I'm ready to proceed on with what I call the example problem 17. And I want to review some of the code over here and make changes to this code just to show you a little bit about the code before we really drop in and get into step one of the web page and adding more code to this, okay? Because again, if you recall, I have talked about the HTML, which is a required tag. What comes first must go last. You can see the closing tag. We have the head tag and the title tag, which we're gonna be typing information inside this title here shortly. We have the body of this, which I'm going to talk about, and the closing body tag, and all this text in here. So I think there's some sort of collaboration with you and me with discussing what's going on here. Okay, so I'm going to start right now with the fun stuff with the body, and I've given you guys the code. Now, if I take these attributes, this is BG. The BG stands for BG color. Now, I'm not making this up. These are attributes that are predefined in these code. Now, I talk about color later, but we can change this color. Now, we can change this to whatever. There's a set 6-digit code of the color wheel, and there's an English language word, okay? There's less code that is defined with the English language word than there is the 6-digit code, and I'm providing you a six-digit code. But what if I simply change this to the word purple? White purple, that's our school color. So if I go purple, for example, and type in purple right here, and I go file, save, and let's just look at our Notepad, example 17. So if I flop this over here, right now it's that aqua color, and I maximize the screen real quick, and I hit refresh, you can see how my background turns the color purple, okay? So, I mean, we can use red, we can use blue, but I'm just telling you, I'm just went with purple, and I changed it from that aqua to purple, and asking you guys to do the same thing, okay? So, I will indulge in the attribute BG color later, but that's just changing the background color of your website, okay, or web page. Then I get into the next tag here, which is I refer to as internal comments. Now, you may remember I've used these internal comments when programming in Visual Basic. I'm using it here, okay, and I just predefine something that this is the main table. The main table, if you look over here on the right-hand side, this little box here, if I open this up again, this box right here is the main table, okay? I could have used any verbiage inside there, but I simply called it, this is the main table. And you can see down at the very end, when I'm done, this says end of the main table. So I'm identifying that it's this point right here, end of the table. Now, this table has some sort of dimension and it looks centered. It does look centered, okay? And that's what I'm going to get into right now. So there is a tag, which we'll talk about in the future as well, that's called center, right? And if I simply, and I'm not asking you to do this, but you can to participate if you want to, if I simply take that center tag out, I delete it, and I go file, and I go save, and I go back to my browser here, and I refresh it, you can see how this table that was centered has moved to the left and now is no longer centered. it's aligned to the left. Just like a word processor, when you load up a word processor, like Word, when you first load up Word, Word is not centered, Word is aligned to the left-hand side. So I'm simply going to, ladies and gentlemen, do an edit, undo, and bring that back. I'm asking you guys to keep the center tag. Understand what comes first must go last. I now have a closing center tag. Understand there are some single tags, and there's not going to be any closing tag with or ending tag with the internal comments. But and I'll talk about that later. But there are with a lot of other tags. Most tags do have what comes first must go last, have a closing tag. So I have put my table back center. I haven't saved it, but I put it back later. Then we have something that is called a table tag. Okay, a table tag has an opening tag, and you see it down below has a closing tag. Okay, and inside this table tag has a width attribute, has an height attribute. I have borders as 1, have cell, and I've predefined the cell padding and the cell spacing as 0. These are numbers. All ladies and gentlemen, all 6 of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, they are 6 different attributes. And then, ladies and gentlemen, a table can have more than just these 6 attributes, but I'm giving you the most popular attributes on the table that I think we can work with. So let's just see what happens. If I take this table to 500, okay, I brought the width from 800 to 500. I brought it down, and I go File, Save As, and I, just simply look at this page real quick, and I refresh it. My table's now centered, back centered again, because I added that center tag, and it's decreased its size to 500. So that number 800 refers to the length of the browser. I'm asking you folks, ladies and gentlemen, to bring it back to 800, which I'm simply am going to bring it back to 800 because that's the standard. This is standard I want you. I'm just showing you how you can change. You can change it to 100, you can change it to 200, but let's please bring it back to 800. If you bring the number much larger, okay, it could actually go out the screen. If you want to try doing a larger number, you can most certainly, but 800 is a standard number that I'm asking us for use in this page, in this example problem. Then we have the number height. We have the attribute height. Height is this way, the height of it. Now, if you get like pictures, a lot of stuff, we'll find our height going bigger. And you can see if I change it right now, let's put the number 500 to it, okay? I'm adding from 300 to 500, making this bigger. So if I go File, Save, and I come back to the browser and refresh, you can see how my table's back to the width of 800, but it went from 300 to 500 in width, okay? So we've now made our table much larger. So I'm going to bring back to split screen, okay? And I'm just going to bring that number back to 300. So I'm making tests. I'm doing some tests here, and you could do some tests. I made some tests with a different number, and I brought the number back from 800 to 300, okay? Then it's the border. And the border number is the thickness of the line that goes around it. Right now we have 1, but let's see what happens if we take it to number 0. And if I go File, Save, and I go to this browser and refresh, you can see how the browser line is no longer there. It's like a framed line. If you want to try to take it up to a number 3, you'll see a thicker line, okay? Most people who develop tables on the marketplace keep the border at 0. Okay, by default, there is default numbers, and by default, if you don't apply a board at all, it'll put a number 1 as a default number. So simply showing you that the line that is on the outside here, we changed it from the number 1 to the 0. Now, the cell padding and cell spacing, that is dealing with the spacing between the text that you see on the screen and the outside space. So if I simply, let's just go look like the cell padding to the number 5, I go File, Save As, and I come back here and refresh. You can see, ladies and gentlemen, that there is now a little bit more spacing between the words in the outside. So that's basically working on the spacing of the cell padding. And you get into cell spacing. Let's say if we change them both to 5, it'll actually bring it up a little bit more. And you probably will not be able to see much of a difference with regards to the actual frame. It's like a frame. So we have cell padding and a cell spacing. So I'm just going to keep, for the practicality, I'm just going to keep those at 5. I sometimes actually like to keep my cell spacing at cell spacing at 0, because I don't like to have any cell spacing around the frame. Okay, so we get into TR tag. The TR stands for table row. Table row. It does not support any attribute. It basically defines how many rows is your table going to have. Right now, it's going to have 1, and we'll hopefully have lessons dealing with tables, but that's what it basically is defined at. And then we get into the BG color FFFF attribute in vertical align. V stands for vertical line equals top, because by default, there's some default with alignment that puts stuff, and we're going to see this here. So if I don't support any background color right now, and I'm just going to delete the BG color FFFF, which is equal to white. Okay, and we can go back and put white. But if I just actually take that BG color out and I go File, Save, ladies and gentlemen, and I refresh, look what's happened. You don't see any sort of table whatsoever, but there is a table there. It's like a hole. It's like a hole. It's a square, and it's a hole, and the background color is bleeding through the table. So the purpose that I'm asking you to put white in there is to support the background white so we can see our text. So understand the TD, which is a table data. Table data is that attribute for the TD, and that's the table data, the data that's inside this cell. Okay, I'm going to do an edit undo. Okay, and I now have that BG color back white. So if I go File, Save again, ladies and gentlemen, you should be able to see that white background. It's the white background inside that table, so the background color won't bleed through. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very hard to read text. It's very hard to read text if you have a dark color in black text. It is super hard. All right, so I'm asking everybody to please keep it as a white background so I can see it, you can see it, and we can see how we are formatting using the different new tabs. And then we got vertical align, and this is also use V equals vertical align, is to make sure our text is aligned to the top. If I take this stuff out, and so now I have a TD BG color FFF, and let me just make a subtle change to this. And you can actually, in this color here, I'm jumping around here, I can call that white, for example, and I save this, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see how my text now is centered. This text right here is centered because center is the default of the cell with data inside it. Okay, so if I come back in here and support that V align equals top, and I go File, Save again, and I refresh, you can see how my text bumps back up to the top. Can I put bottom? Look, I could take this attribute and type from top. I could type bottom. Watch, I moved it. Okay, I'm not making this up. Okay, I'm teaching you some basic attributes right now, and what we have in our possession of this code, which is the foundation we got going. But top is keeps the alignment to the top. If I type in bottom, let's see what happens here. And if I go File, Save, and I refresh, that text automatically gets aligned to the bottom of the cell. So for practicality, ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking you to keep it at top. All right, and I go File, Save. All right, so now we are going to, let me refresh this. This is like what we got when we first started. And I'm asking you guys again, I have changed it to white. You most certainly can. I'm asking you to keep the vertical alignment the same. Okay, so everything from this table, width, height, border, cell, spacing, all should be kept the same. Okay, so now if I move into the text, this is what is written on the screen. So if I wanted to add another line here after this and say, and I just say, hello, how are you doing? Okay, just some generic text. Okay, and if I go File, Save, you should now see that generic text on the screen as well. Okay, so to conclude with what we got so far, I had an opening center tag, I have a closing center tag, have an opening table tag, have a closing table tag. I have the TR tag, table row, have a closing TR tag, closing the TR tag. I have an opening TD tag, which is table data, and I have a closing TD tag, which is the closing table table data. So at this time, I'm kind of done reviewing, and hopefully you can understand the tags I've given you. I just want to do one more thing, okay, before we move on and start building and adding stuff here. Let's go up to the title tag, okay, and see what's going on. And let's just type in my test drive, okay? So I just typed in 3 words. Look up here. I have the title tag, have the closing title tag, and I've typed in 3 words, my test drive. So I'm going to save that right now, and I'm going to go over to the browser and refresh it, and I'm going to maximize so I can see and look at the verbiage that I have on here. Okay. Okay, it says my test drive. That's actually what this is, and that actually asking you to do that as well. So you can't really see that much of it when I'm in a split screen because the tab, but if I hover over it, I can see my test drive. And so I'm asking you as I conclude from this area and actually get back to the notes, I'm asking you go ahead and do that and type in my test drive so we can proceed on. Okay, I'm back on the notes. We ended with trying to talk about the different the logistics of this table. So I just went through these different tags. I'm now back at the notes. Okay, I'm now ready to really jump into step 1 of the web title. I'm trying to put a title on this, and our outcome shortly will be the following: my test drive web page, with your name right below there, okay? So like we've seen already, I'm going to be utilizing yellow boxes. These yellow boxes is going to make it easy for us to copy and paste, but you may not know where to paste it, okay? So that's part of this video, and I get in discussing some of these basic tags with you. And I scroll down a little bit, and I'm going to be starting with the single tags, and I'm going to be talking about the internal comment, the BR tag, the HR tag, and the P tag in this segment. Okay, so step 1, okay, is going to call for us to highlight. I want us to go ahead and jump in and highlight this box here, and we're going to be deleting. I want us to put it in a place where we're going to be deleting something. So I'm gonna copy these 4 lines here inside this yellow box, and if I come over to the Notepad that we're working with, the test drive, that line that I had given you, and you may have typed in, hello, how are you doing, something generic. I'm going to ask you now to go ahead and delete just that one line that says all HTML code is written inside this table, hello, how are you doing. So I'm going to hit the backspace, and I'm simply deleting it. So there's nothing there whatsoever. So if I go real quick before I paste it, if I go save, I go into my browser, and let's say refresh that browser, I don't see anything. Okay, so that's all we did. We extracted that line of text. And now I'm going to come in here and now paste what I just put in here. Okay, and let's see what we did. We're chunking it. I'm going to use the word chunk a lot. So I had pasted these 4 lines in between the TD tag and the closing TD tag, okay? And I'd sometimes put spaces in between it, which I'm going to do. I'm going to add a couple spaces after it because I'm going to be dumping more information in here. So I'm getting ready to do that. But let's talk about what's going on here. So the CR changes, let's go File, Save. I go to the browser, and I refresh. And now you see something that says My Test Drive Page, by your name, and this is obviously example problem 17. So if I come back to the notes and I scroll down, it's a little bit different. I've given you a visual that, okay, let's go ahead and delete that all tags and paste it right in there. Okay, so your screen looks very similar to this. So let's make a subtle change to this, and let's get your name. Let's get your name here. All right, so I'm going to go to the code, back to the code, and where it says your name, go ahead and type your first and last name. I'm going to type my first and last name. I want you to type your first and last name. John Smith, Lisa Lou. okay? Type your first and last name. Let's make changes, save it. We're chunking again and refresh. Boom. You now should see your first and last name, okay, with the word example problem 17 right after that. So let's investigate the code real quick, and I drill down, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit, and going to be discussing these tags with you, and I call them single tags, but you know they're used a lot. Let's the internal comment tag, because we have it here and we've seen it already. This is an area that you actually allow to put in comments to help the user identify where things at. We saw this in Visual Basic. We use it an apostrophe and asterisk. Now, while I use asterisk, I teach asterisk. A lot of professors teach asterisk. That may not be the case, but it's a good method of identifying logistics of where you're at. So if you can see this is called the title. We have an opening comment tag, and I placed it again just to help me out. It's a single tag that doesn't show up. It's hidden. It's hidden in the code that doesn't show up in your browser. This is identifying to me, hey, where the title's at. And so when I want to make changes to the code, I can easily come up and try to find where's the title at. Okay, it's right here. I can make changes to it. We eventually will be asked to change this number from 17 to 18. Okay, so you will be required. You will be seeing me give you many internal comment tags, and you'll be required to use it as well. Okay, so really before I can get into the BR and the HR and the P tag, and I really want to get into copying more text, but just to clarify the other text that's going on here, we have a center tag. Okay, we have a closing center tag. Okay, we see the center tag again here, and we have a closing center tag here. So we see a little bit of that already being placed, which I talked to you. That's just making that text center. So if I go back to the browser, and you can see how all this text in here, if I maximize all this text in here, is actually centered. Okay, so before proceeding on, I think there's an H1 tag, which I'm going to talk about here shortly, a little later, and I think and a P tag, which is a paragraph tag, and allows you the return, which I'm going to be talking about a little bit more. But this is the opening structure that I hope you guys can get to at this point before I move on to the next step. Okay, I'm ready to proceed forward on to step 2, and we're going to be putting more text on our screen, and then really get into working with the BR, the HR, and the P tag for formatting. These are more formatting tags with HTML, and basically are a lot of the times majority are being used. Okay, so like we've done before, I'm asking you guys to go ahead and highlight and copy this yellow box. Notice there's like a 1 paragraph, 2 paragraph, and a bunch of listed items with the comment tag beginning and after. So I'm going to highlight this yellow box here, and I'm going to come over to the code, and I'm then going to paste it, and I'm going to give a couple returns. Okay, so you can see now our Notepad is getting built. There's more content in it. All right, but I noticed that it didn't give me a proper return, so I'm going to hit return after much more, so I see a clean space here. So what we have here is an internal comment tag that says body page, body of page. We have one that says end of body, so end of body of page. We see 1 paragraph, I see 2 paragraphs, and then a bunch of listed items here, what you see here. So let's chunk it like we said before, and let's go file, save. I'm going to go over to my Notepad that I have open, and I'm going to refresh it. I'm just going to maximize it real quick. Now, if you look at this, you say, oh my goodness, I only see 1 paragraph here. Mr. Proctor, I'm only seeing 1 paragraph, but our code over there has like 3 paragraphs. How come we don't see the 3 paragraphs as it displays over here? Okay, this is where the formatting tags come into play. So I'm going to come back over here and first talk to you guys a little bit by trying to create the first 2 paragraphs. So we're going to have to create these tags. All right, so right after the much more, I'm going to do a left then sign P and then greater than sign. So I'm going to hold this and highlight what I just did, and so you can see right after the first paragraph, much more, I have inserted a tag. You got to hold down the shift key, hit the left hand side, P, the greater than sign. All right, that is a paragraph sign. I'm now going to, knowing that I think this is tedious at time, I am now going to copy that tag. I'm going to go Control C and copy that tag and paste it in there. So now I have placed that tag twice. I placed the P tag, which is the paragraph tag, all right, which gives us 2 hard returns. I put it after the first paragraph, and I put it after the second paragraph, which says this web page will display and a web page in number using the way. So there's two tags that I placed in there real quick. So I'm going to go File, Save, and see our changes real quick. I'm going to go to the browser, and I'm now going to refresh it. And now you look at your browser, folks, you could see that there now is 3 different paragraphs noted there. So to create a paragraph in return, you can see this is 1 return, this is 2 return, 1 return, 2 return. Why is that happening? Because we told the browser that you need to hit a return after the P tag, and I've put in it twice, which then reflects us having 2 hard returns. Okay, so if I go back to the notes now, I'm now going to move in a direction and talk about the BR tag. Okay, BR stands for breaks, all right, and it only gives you a 1 return. Okay, a single return. So I'm going to come over here to the powerful lines, and I'm going to type in 1 BR tag. And folks, I'm going to be clear, and I've done it a little bit different. It doesn't have to be uppercase BR. It can be lowercase. And in this instance, I'm going to use it in lowercase to show you that. So I have now typed in a BR, which gives us 1 return. I'm going to highlight, so I don't have to type those keys. I'm going to highlight that BR tag and do a Control C like I did up above. And I'm then going to paste it after the hypertext to HTML, hypertext to the previous create web page, hypertext fonts, fancy fonts, perfect pictures, ordinary, and then extraordinary. But after the extraordinary, I'm just going to give this a couple spaces because we're going to be adding maybe a little bit more stuff, but I'm going to change this last BR to a P. So I'm going to repeat myself real quick. I added a BR tag. I copied and I paste it. But this last one, I changed the BR back to a P. All right. So I'm going to go File, Save. I am then going to go to the browser and refresh it. And now we can see our product on the right-hand side. We now have listed items that are listed in this area of the listed items. And you can see the difference between the P tag, okay, right here gives us 2 returns, okay, between here, and the BR tag, which we have been using here, gives us a single return. All right, so if I flop back to the web browser, we've started to use some of these tags. I am now going to use the HR tag, ladies and gentlemen. I'm now going to use the HR tag. All right. In this instance, if I come over to the code and let's come back up, let's go up, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go up in between the internal comment tag and the body, and I just created a space, and I'm going to type the HR tag. Okay. HR tag. And again, it can be uppercase or lowercase. So what I've done here is added an HR tag. Let's look at it, okay? Let's see what happened. If I'm gonna go File, Save, I go to my browser and I hit refresh, notice how it's giving us a line that's going across, okay? So this is a good representation to have lines on your screen. Okay, so once again, I'm going to show you another attribute, and let's say we want to take this and make this a color. All right, so if I go into this HR tag and put a space and type in color equals, let's say purple again. I'm trying to do the same color, purple again. So color is the attribute. what is the color going to be? It's going to be purple. So I just added an attribute. Now note that the P tag does not support any attributes, ladies and gentlemen. The BR tag doesn't support any attribute. They're doing a function of returning spaces after a segment on a paragraph. And generally they're used between paragraphs in listed items. But HR tag, a horizontal reference. So if I go back to my notes, what does HR stand for? It stands for horizontal reference. Okay. It's a horizontal line. Okay. So if I now just simply go File, Save, look at my browser, refresh my browser, you now see a purple line. Let's put a purple line there somewhere else again. Let's put it right below the extraordinary extra. So if I highlight that HR purple color, that whole tag, that whole sequence of a single tag, and I go down below, maybe give me a couple lines. Give me a couple lines. I'm still inside this body here, folks, but I'm going to paste it couple lines down below because we're going to put some more text in here. Extraordinary extra, I actually put another purple, another instance of that hypercolor purple line. So I'm going to go File, Save, and then refresh the screen over here. And so now we can see this is a perfect example that our table now is starting to become bigger because we're getting more content on it. Our table's getting pushed down, and we can see another line. We're going to continue putting information on this web page below this line, but we're slowly building this. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there and let you know that we've experienced the internal comment, the BR tag breaks, the HR tag, horizontal reference, and the P tag, which is the paragraph tag. I'm now going to move on to third step and try to format format the text a little bit, make it come to life, try to write some color, some font size. And so I have a couple images down below of what we've done, some generic images. So I'm going to skip over these kind of give you some representation where we put some of these P tags. So I'm going to move on to the formatting tags. And it's trying to format the text. Okay, and so we have a little table down here that I have the B, which obviously may have noticed that early in our prior notes, that's representing a bold. The I tag is representing italics. The U tag is representing underline. And then we have something that says H1, and these are creates headlines. And we may have seen the headlines up with our, and I'll come back up here, up with our title up here with the test drive, and I'll get there shortly. And it ranges from 1 to 6, okay? So we can have small headlines to large headlines, okay? Or large to small. And then we get into some more font tags, which is the font size. We get into font color, font face. We've got exposure to the center tag a little bit, and that allows us to line stuff. And then I'll get into maybe showing you how you can align tags with the P tag as well, okay? So I'm going to start with the B tag here and just simply trying to create things some bold, okay? So I'm actually going to have to type in these tags again. So I'm going to go up here to this first paragraph. If you can put your eyeballs on the first paragraph, and if you can identify where it says over 200 programs, I'm going to put an open and closing B tag between the over 200 programs. So if I simply do a opening B tag, and again, you can do a capital B or lowercase b, the B doesn't matter, and I'm now going to copy it. So I put a B tag in front of the word over and going after the word programs, and I'm going to put a backslash. So let me repeat what I just did. I entered the lesson sign B greater than sign for the B tag. I then highlighted it and copied it. I then went after the programs, word programs in the S, pasted it, and then I inserted a backslash. So I'm taking baby steps. Let's see what happens to that text. So if I go File, Save, I go into the Notepad, or excuse me, the browser, and I can try to identify, or I can see it right now. And if I go File and I go refresh, you should be able to see that text now over 200 being bold, okay? Let's take that And let's make something else bold, okay? Let's come down here to where it says much, much more. This last couple words in this first paragraph. And I already have the B tab on my clipboard, so I'm going to Control V again, all right? And so I've actually pasted in that B tag, and I'm going to put a paste again, maybe right after the period and before the P tag, and insert a backslash. So let me recap what I did again. I pasted a B tag in front of much, much more. Then I pasted it again in front of more, but then I inserted a backslash. I'm closing that out. So let's save what our work. We're chunking it, save on our work, refreshing it, and now you can see much, much more. So we now have gotten exposure to using the bold tag twice in 2 locations, okay? So now let's go back here and let's get exposure to the italics, okay? And how can we use the italics in it? I'm going to focus in that same area, those 2 different areas again, okay? So if I go, let's say, on the outside or inside, I'm going to go on the inside. It doesn't really matter, but what comes first must go last, okay? So I'm actually going to make it easier on myself. I'm going to do a Control V again. I got like 2 bolds, and I'm going to make a subtle change with the B to the I and highlight what I've done. So instead of me having to consistently type the less than sign and the greater than sign, once I got a tag on the clipboard and I could paste it, I can make subtle changes to it by doing a copy and paste. All right. I am now going to copy that I. I have it highlighted. I'm going to copy that I, and I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to go in front of the B, and I'm going to italicize or make that italicized and close it out and make it subtle with the backslash. So I'm now wanting to support an opening, or excuse me, an I, also supporting the over 200 programs. I'm going to do that again, folks. With that in clipboard, before I save and refresh, I'm going to make that much, much more also italicized. So if I go right after the B and paste, because I have that in the clipboard, that letter I right after the B and much, much more, and then go to the end and paste and do it in front of the closing B. So now I have proper structure. What comes first? B tag must go last. What comes last obviously is coming first. Now these have backslashes to them, okay? The ending has backslash. So I put the italicized in 2 different areas. I'm going to save. I'm going to go to the browser. I'm going to refresh. Now that text is now, as you can see there, now is italicized, and it should look italicized, okay? So I'm simply going to move on, folks, back to the notes. Is I'm now going to discuss the underline. And I'm going to make a large body of text underline, okay? A large body of text underline, okay? Instead of what we were just working with, I'm going to go somewhere else. But now I'm going to be using the U, which is the underline, okay? So I'm going to, let's say, go right above the powerful lines, and I'm going to do a Control V again, which I have the I, and I'm going to change that I to a U. And in this instance, I'm using a capital U. It doesn't matter if you can use a capital U or a lowercase u, okay? So I have an opening I right here in front of the powerful lines. I'm going to then copy that U, and I'm going to take it right after the extraordinary extra, and I'm going to do Control V, all right? In this instance, I have to put a backslash in it to close out the underline. So what I've done here is made an opening U and a closing U. I'm wrapping all that text, that listed item right there. So I'm going to go File, Save, ladies and gentlemen. If I come over to the browser and I refresh, you should now see all this listed text now representing itself as underlined. And so I'm not going to go anymore. I think you get the logistics of making that underline. So if you haven't done it yet, please follow the procedures of making that bold and underline, making that bold and underline, and bold and italics, and making all these listed items underline. I'm now going to proceed back and now talk about the H1 and through the H6. And I'm going to take steps to go back up to the title to talk about this a little bit. Right now, as you very well may have seen, the title had my test drive webpage had H1 listed there. And if you come up to the top, that's number 1 represents the biggest font for a headline, okay? If I change this, and I'm asking you to do it right now, to the number 3 and make the tail end 3. So I've just made those two numbers, ladies and gentlemen, to a 3, 3 and 3. I'm going to go File, Save. You'll find this on my browser, the text being smaller. The numbers range from 1 to 6, right? If I go back to my code and change that number from 3 to maybe 6 and then change another number to 6 and File, Save, you'll see this text get even smaller. So you have the capability of changing the font size using the H1, which is the headline tag, from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's kind of crazy. I don't know why. I didn't make this up. I would think like the H6 should be the biggest number of font size, but it's not. It's the smallest. H1 is the biggest. H6 is the smallest. All right. So for the subtle of that, I'm asking everybody to go ahead and change that back to H1 to make our title here big. Okay. So we're just test driving. We're just test driving these tags. We're testing out these tags. That's one of the reasons I'm calling this a test drive page, because we're testing out these tags. Okay. So enough said with the H1. You've gotten exposure with this activity. Now we're going to be moving on with the font tag, ladies and gentlemen. And the font tag does not work unless you have an attribute with it. Font tag does nothing unless you have the size, the color, and the face. Okay, I'm going to stick with the word size. And the size is kind of reversed with what you saw the headline. 1 is the smallest and 7 is the biggest. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to strictly work in this area again down below. Okay, and I'm going to go right above. Let's say, yeah, I'm going to go right above, ladies and gentlemen, the U tag. And I'm going to physically type in the word font, space, size, equals, and I'm going to stop for a second, okay? How you type the word font does not have to be in all caps. You can have everything in lowercase. You can have everything in uppercase. You can have it how you see it here. Okay, so I'm going to keep it simple right now, and I'll let you know. I believe the default font size is 3. So if you don't put font size whatsoever, that's the look at it, right? But I'm going to start with the number 1. I'm going to put the number 1 down there and close it out. Now we're not done because I need to put a closing font, and I want you to put a closing font. So I'm going to go after the closing U, what comes first must go last, and I'm physically going to type in the word font and close it. So notice my font. I have a single attribute. Size is an attribute. Size is an attribute, okay, of font. If I don't have any font, any attribute in font, nothing's going to happen. But I'm telling the browser to change the font size to 1. And look down below. I am using a / word font inside the tag to close the font out. Okay, so if I simply go File, Save, ladies and gentlemen, and I refresh this browser, look how small my font is at this particular time. Okay, it went very small. Let's look at the biggest scale. Let's type the number, ladies and gentlemen, the number 7 over here. So I'm physically changing the number 1 to 7. I'm going to go File, Save, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to come over to the browsers and refresh it. Boom. Okay, my font increases greatly. Okay, and that's the biggest font that can be supported in web development using these basic tags. Let's take a peek of what 6 looks like. I'm changing 7 to 6. I'm going File, Save to check out the font size. It brings it down. I'm changing it to 5. Let's say to 5. Bringing it down to 5. I'm going Save and refreshing it. It brings it down even smaller. I'm going to go to 4, right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to bring this File, Save, and bring it down even smaller. And refresh it. Oh, I need to save it. I didn't save it. Save, and I'm chunking it and bringing it, refresh it. And I brought it down to 4. If you want to experience what 3, 2 looks like and 1 again, you can. I'm telling you, folks, let's keep it at 4. Okay, because we actually see a change of the font size in our web page from the generic, what you see here, to a font size 4. Okay, so I'm now going to go back to the notes. We've now experienced what the attribute of size looked like. Now I'm going to get into color. We've already experienced color a little bit within the HR tag. We put color equals purple. Let's do this again, ladies and gentlemen. Now I do not need to put another font, like font color. I can add a attribute to this. So I'm going to go inside the brackets. I'm going to hit a space bar. I'm actually physically going to type the word color equals. Okay. I'm adding a second attribute to this. And I'm now going to type the word blue, for example, equals, equals blue. Okay. Color equals blue. I don't have to put another closing font tag because I have two attributes in here. Yeah, can I put another font tag that says font blue? I would have to have another font, but knowing that I'm talking about a section of text that's going to be all being adjusted together, the word is together, I can do that. So I'm going to go File Save, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go to the browser and I'm going to refresh. Now you see some color to our font. Now, yeah, you can make this red, you can make this yellow, whatever. I'm making this kind of look like links. Okay, they kind of on a browser do look like links. This is not the proper way to make hyperlinks, but I'm just trying to giving you a representation of how you can change the color of text if you want to in this instance. Okay, so as you can see here, that's what the colors are. Okay, so I can change more things color if I wanted to. I'm going to stop short there and not do so. If you look at my notes down below, I do maybe talk about putting other things, some color, and doing some other formatting techniques to this. I'm not bothered by this right now, but I'll get to some other characters. Okay, so if I move forward to the face, and this is where I'm going to probably refer back to the notes. Face is changing the font face. Right now, by default, it is Times New Roman. That is the default. It's got to be it's got to support some default, like a default of the font face, and it's Times New Roman. Okay, so if I come back to the objective, I'm in module 7, and there's a link up here that says font, and you can see there's a color table. Let me just since we're just dealing with color here, I'm going to load up this table right here. Is color table so we can just take a peek at it. All right, and this is a representation that I'm presenting to you of the English language words that can be used with the color that I am providing you guys with some sort of generic color, and you should be able to see blue in here somewhere, but there's a limited color. I have some other links if you want to explore that may or may not be working, that you can use the code. You can see these. This is six-digit color, and there's a code. So I'm not going to be bothered with that with you right now, but you can explore that with yourself. What I am going to be jumping into is to review and apply the font faces. Okay, so I'm going to open up a new tab here. Oops, so let me do this here. Let me open up a new tab here. If I open up a new tab, and I'm opening up the font, that's part of in my links here. Now, folks, this is just a small pinch of the different fonts that are available on the marketplace. Just a small pinch, okay? And I'm just going to use the generic one up above his Arial, okay? Arial. So if we type face equals Arial to this, for example, if we type and add that, that'll change our font face to Arial. So I'm just going to copy face. I'm not copying the whole font there. I'm just copying face equal Arial. And if I go into this attribute and I add that, look what I've added. I've added the word face. I put a space after the E. I put a space after the E in blue. I then, you need to put in face equal. Face is the attribute. And what you see inside the quotes is that font face Arial, okay? And I put that in quotes there. And technically speaking, the good approach, ladies and gentlemen, and you want to do this as well, and I didn't do this, but it's still working. The good approach is put all these attributes, they're defined inside of quotes, okay? So what we have now is using the attribute face, and we want to turn it to Arial. And maybe we can change it again if we want to. It's up to you. So if I go File Save, and I go into the browser, and I refresh, you should have a distinctive look on what you see here with regards to seeing this font face change in color, okay? So Yeah, that table then gets into discussing the font size, the font color, and font face. All right. And so I'm not going to get into reviewing center. We saw that already. That makes the content center. You can make stuff right align, left align with P tags. And I do give you some representation, what we kind of have done down below here. And you can see some of the logistics. So how do we wrap this up now? Now that we have a finished product here, we got a web page and we got code. Well, I want to see both of it, and I'm going to go right now adding a flower box, to our code. So remember, going back to Visual Basic, we had flower box. So if I'm going to go back to the module 7, and there's a link down below here that says flower box. If I right click and open that new tab, and you see the flower box, okay, I'm asking everybody to highlight this whole yellow box that has your name, author, and such. I'm going to copy, and I'm now going to tell you where you're going to paste it. You're going to scroll all the way back up, and right, ladies and gentlemen, right inside the head tag and the title tag, we have the HTML tag, we have the head tag. I want you to put some returns right in here, and I want you to do Control V, okay? And you can maybe delete some of the extra spaces. Now, remember back in working with Visual Basic, and these lines would move, you're going to have to work with the overtype, okay? And so you're going to have to find that overtype, that insert button. Notice that if I click right here with the file name and I'll do insert overtype, it should change that functionality, so you're allowed to type insert overtype, okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, if not, you can simply try to go ahead and pull back those asterisks. So I'm going to go right now and type in example 17. Okay, that's what we're working on. And I'm just going to simply bring this, hit the delete button, bring this back. I'm then going to type in author, and I'm going to type in your name, but it should be your name. Okay, and I'm going to bring those asterisks back the easy way. You can omit computer station number, but if you're sitting at computer station 17, for example, I'm just making this up, type in that 17. Then you type in a date, you type in the current date, and then type in the purpose, and you could type in to test out HTML, and this is all I'm asking you to type in tags, okay? And I'm going to bring that back. So this is a representation of what your flower box should be. This is not going to be seen on your browser whatsoever because it has these internal, this is an internal tag, this is an internal tag. All of these are internal tags that you, as the user, you cannot see whatsoever. So I'm simply going to go file save, and I'm going to go to my browser real quick and refresh it. You don't see them, but there you go. Okay, so understand that, ladies and gentlemen, as you're trying to conclude with this, you're going to be trying to, in this example problem, this web page right here, you're trying to upload to Canvas in the Dropbox. So if I go to Canvas, there should be a Dropbox, which you're then going to be uploading this file to Canvas. That would be the file that's located right here in your document folder, ladies and gentlemen. If I go to programming and I go to web development, okay, so I can identify it, this file right here that we've been working on, test drive example 17, needs to be uploaded to Canvas to get a participation grade.